Hey guys, Oscar Combs here with the ISO Certifications Group. In today's episode of Certification Corner, we're going to talk about the appropriate use of the verbs shall, should, may, and can. Over my 30 years of experience, I have seen organizations struggle with the use, or shall I say, the proper use of these verbs. Shall we do something? Should we do something? May we do something? Can we do something? When should we use these verbs? Let's talk about it. All right, guys. So let's talk about this a little bit. So the first thing when it comes to the use of these verbs, shall, should, may, or can, is that we have to realize they are verbs. So what are verbs? So verbs are action words, right? These are things that we want people to do. So if I tell you to run, that's a verb. I want you to run, So when we're thinking about the use of these, what action do we want people to take? So the definition of a verb is describing what we are doing or we want someone to do. So like I said, if I want you to run, I'm going to say run and you go and run, right? That's what I want you to do. So if you tell someone they shall do something, you want them to do that. Or if you say, well, you should do this, you want them to do it, but you're saying should. And then, if you're saying you may do this, what does that mean specifically? Or you can do this. What does that mean? When you're trying to write policies, procedures, work instructions, it's very important that you use the right verb. All right, so now let's talk about shall. Shall is one of the most common verbs that we see in policies, procedures, and work instructions. And shall indicates it's a requirement. That means that it's mandatory. There's no exception. We want you to do this 100% of the time. And most organizations should be using the word shall, right? I literally just said should, meaning that I'm recommending that most organizations really should use the word shall, and they're using the wrong verb in many cases because you want someone to do something and you want to make it a requirement. So that's when you should use the verb shall. If you tell someone they should do something, did you really make it a requirement? So for example, if you say in your procedures that all employees shall wear hard hats when working, so do we want that to be mandatory? Is that a requirement? We wouldn't want to say employees should wear hard hats, right? Because then we kind of made it a bit optional. So we need to be very specific when we want to use the appropriate verb within your policy, your procedures, or your work instructions, right? So be mindful of that. Now, let's talk about the verb should. Should indicates it's a recommendation, right? So the hard hat example, is it a recommendation? Should employees wear their hard hat? Like that's a recommendation. It's not a requirement. So should, when you use the word should, it's when you're making a recommendation, the individual has some flexibility, right? So many employees, if you told them you should wear your hard hat, they won't wear their hard hat, right? Because you gave them options. You made it a recommendation. You didn't make it a requirement. So an appropriate use would be, let's say if someone was typing into a form, for example, right? you could say something like in your procedure, employees should type into the form because you're recommending. And we may say we want them to type into it because, to make it more legible. But we're also, it's not a requirement because they can also maybe handwrite it in and take their time, and it can still be legible. So handwritten on the form could also be acceptable, right? So we would use the verb should. So again, keep in mind when you're using the verb should, what you're saying is that you're making a recommendation to the person. Now, what about the verb may? Now, may is a verb that is used to indicate permission to do something. So in this case, you're saying you may do this, right? You're giving someone permission. So for example, if you wanted to give someone permission to work remotely in the procedure, you would say employees may work remotely, let's say for 2 days out of the week. We're doing like the hybrid approach. So this isn't a requirement. We're not saying that you have to work remotely. What we're saying is, you may work remotely. We're giving the employee permission to work remotely. They may accept that, or they may choose to come into the office, right? But either way, they have permission. It would not be appropriate to say in the procedures that employee may wear their hard hat, right? We don't want, of course, we're giving them permission to wear their hard hat, but we want it to be a requirement. So we want to use the verb that they shall wear their hard hat, not that they may wear their hard hat, right? You guys kind of getting when we would use these verbs. And the last one is can. So can is a verb that is saying possibility or capability. All right, so for example, a machinist can machine parts upon receiving training, right? Because now they're capable, right? And it's possible for them to machine properly now because they have gone through training. So now they can machine. That's how you want to use the verb can. So in this example, we're indicating that the machinist is now capable. It's possible for them to perform machining properly. Now, an organization would not use can for the hard hat example, right? Employees can wear hard hats, right? Wearing a hard hat is not a possibility. We are giving them permission, but we want the hard hat to be a requirement when they're working outside, right? So we would say shall. So really clear examples, very practical on when you should use the verbs shall, should, may, and can. All right, guys. Well, I want you to be more mindful when you're using these verbs. It's terribly important that you use the right one when you are writing your policies, your procedures, your work instructions, maybe your specifications. If you use the wrong one, people will definitely, take it upon themselves on how to interpret it, right? So if you mean you want someone to do something and it's a requirement, you want to use the verb shall. So guys, hey, take a moment and in the comments below, let me know how your organization uses these verbs. Do you guys struggle with this? What have you seen in your experience with the use of these verbs? Well, hey guys, I hope you found this information helpful to help you write better, more concise processes, policies, procedures, your work instructions, possibly even your specifications. Hey, I encourage you to take time to follow us, subscribe to us, share the video, like this video. And again, take a moment, just a second, drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts. Hey guys, Oscar Combs here with ISO Certifications Group, certification made in America. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye now.